Yeah, I think we're live. Cool.
Hello, good morning, everyone.
Live. Morning. How you doing?
We are engaged. Yay! Even though I'm based in Essex and you're based in Nottingham, we are still together, aren't we? It's
We are.
nice.
We are. It's fascinating that we're so far. I'm used to this because my family live at least 2 hours drive. Most of them live at least 2 hours drive away. So FaceTime and all those things have helped us engage more. But yeah, it's fascinating to think that met so many friends and whatnot just never actually met in real life yet. It will happen. It will happen. But yeah, cool. So yes, engagement. That's what we're going to talk about today, isn't it? We're going to talk about that kind of concept where you can see glazed looks in people's eyes, or I was just saying to you before we started this that I had my son's parents' evening last night, and that kind of when the teacher asks a question of the class and nobody puts their hand up, and that kind of mixture of I don't know the answer, I don't want to put my hand up, all that kind of disengagement in the reason you're there. So for me, engagement is about the reason you're there. It's the reason you turn up to your screen, your office, your keyboard, your book, your whatever it is you do, your machine, whatever it is you do for a job. Why are you there? And expanding that out into the rest of the team. So that's what engagement, that's what I'll be talking about for engagement. What about you, Tasha?
Yeah, so engagement for me is really, especially from an NLP perspective, it's engaging with our lives in a certain way, because it's not just engagement at work, is it? It's how you engaged with the people around you at work and at home and with your family members. So for me, really, engagement in teams is all about building really great relationships, obviously starting with yourself first to have that self-awareness, which then leads into shared awareness, and then really understanding how we've already got all those resources in ourselves already, but how we can start to communicate differently, ask questions in a different way to get different answers. Because like you said, with surveys and all these kind of things that companies do to check the mental fitness of their employees and how people feel in their teams and productivity and all that kind of other stuff, it's quite easy to kind of surpass a survey and to kind of answer in a way that you think your employers are going to want to see. But actually, when we learn how to ask a question in a different way and really listen actively using NLP and obviously the teamship skills, things really do start changing, because then that's the point where we really get to understand what's really going on, what's really not going on, and what we can do together to solve it. So to me, yeah, it's all about relationships and how we engage in our lives, because you can't separate work from home, can you?
No, not at all. I think we've tried. There was a lot of movement in that direction, boundaries and space and transition. And, there are times when you need to be more aware of your thoughts about work leading into your life at home and vice versa. But actually, those two things should be close together. They are a big part of you. You're spending a lot of time in both of those environments. So
Like you said,
I create hard barriers. Boundaries, yes, but hard barriers, no.
And it's
Sorry.
about how you show up in your own life, in every area of your life. That to me is what true engagement is about. And one of the key concepts of NLP is how we live our lives. And there's two concepts, and I've talked about them in other videos before. But living at effect, for those people who are, maybe disconnected, they might be saying things like, oh, well, it's because of remote working and hybrid, and I'm not seeing people all the time, and that's why I'm feeling disconnected. And it's not something that I can change, because the work policy is that I am going to be spending the majority of my time at home. So I can't change it. It's not my fault. It's just how things are at the moment. But when we learn about cause, and those people who tend to live at cause say things like, well, I am part of this, I can make a difference. And then they would start changing their internal dialogue to, actually, I am part of this, I can change it. What would I like instead? Who do I need to ask for help? And how can I change my working pattern to be more connected? And how can I start engaging in a different way to feel different and better about the whole situation? So just to kind of explain what those two ways of living are is really important, because it shows people that blaming other external factors doesn't help. And as soon as we take responsibility and accountability for it, and actually know that we're part of it, is so helpful, because not everybody's going to want the same thing, but they are going to be able to do something about it and understand how the brain works in order to change it so that they get what they want. Because not everybody's going to we're talking about Zoom calls and stuff like that. Not everybody's going to want to have the backgrounds on and have cameras on, because not everybody likes to showcase themselves in that way. So it's just a way of finding out what individuals want and how you can give them the tools to change it, to make them more engaged and feel more part of what they're doing daily.
Yeah, I think like anything, engagement it's not fixed, and it doesn't just grow or shrink. It ebbs and flows depending on various factors. And what you just described there, I know you mentioned it earlier as well, again, I'm a broken record, but the best place to start is self-awareness. Is okay, if I want to engage more with my work, with my team, if I want to feel more fulfilled, if I want to be more productive, I want to be more useful, if I want to move on, you've got to understand where that's coming from in yourself first. So, questions like, why am I doing this job? Which is simple questions, but you kind of get, if somebody asks you that, you usually get for the money, or because I have to, or hey, you know what, there's, I like the people. There's usually surface answers that come out, and it's about looking below that and looking for, okay, so let's be blunt, at the moment, work isn't an issue in terms of finding a job. It's a pretty decent market in terms of finding work. There are exceptions, but generally speaking, finding a job isn't too much of an issue. So there's probably more choice than has been for a long time. So you don't generally have to just take a job for the money. There are other things that should attract you to it. So look beyond that. There are many ways to make money. So why have you chosen that way to make money? My daughter's working at a certain fast food restaurant chain at the moment. It's her first job. Many aspects of it she doesn't like, but her best friend works there. She loves the sort of organization bit. She loves the fact she doesn't have to think too much. She's studying her A-levels, which is intense for her. So at this job, there's stuff to follow, but most of it's pretty switch your brain off. There are things in there that actually relaxes her. She doesn't like smelling of food every day. There are being on her feet all the time, but there are things she doesn't like. But there are reasons she chose that job over waitressing or a paper round or whatever. So look for those reasons and ask yourself that, because once you understand that yourself, or at least understand a bit better, you'll be better prepared to engage with the rest of your team. How are you doing your job?
And I think a massive part of this, where I think some companies really need to focus a lot of their efforts on, is being honest about where they are and how they feel about things, because some of those stories will be true, but some of those stories won't be true. And this is where, the study of NLP, and I'm a keen follower of Brené Brown and what she does. And just getting down to the facts of the situation can really help us move forward, because some of those stories that we tell ourselves about, why we choose to disconnect, because somebody looked at us a funny way, or, we had a meeting which didn't go particularly well and we're feeling like we're outcast, or we haven't got a voice or anything like that. And then that turns into a very unhelpful self-dialect, doesn't it? And then we don't put ourselves forward the next time. But actually, if we had those honest conversations with ourselves to go, actually, what is it that's triggering me? Why am I feeling that way? Obviously get into cause and think, right, what can I do about it? And then that starts those processes of having those early interventions, conversations fast. And that's what engagement and what we're talking about here, isn't it? It's doing little things often when they feel really freaking uncomfortable, because it's those little things that we don't do that prolong the pain, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. It's that kind of, I was working with a client yesterday afternoon, and she's this incredibly successful, multiple leadership careers, doing an incredible job at the moment. And at the moment, she's talking directly to one of the MDs, because her director is on maternity leave. And her relationship with this MD isn't as strong. And actually, it took one comment to disengage her from the work. And it was just that one comment. It's disengagement is so easy to create. And it wasn't the comment, it was her response. It was her thinking about the comment. But it's so easy to create disengagement that we've got to actively work at engaging on stuff. So it's kind of, again, like I said, it's not the situation, it's not that person and what they've said, it's their response to it. If somebody else said that, they'd be fine. They wouldn't disengage, but they chose to disengage for various other reasons. So
Yeah.
it is about the self-awareness, and engagement for me is the way to sort of, okay, so I'm aware of this of why I'm doing this job. I'm aware of what it is I like about the job, what I don't like about the job. Engagement is then the tool you use to do something with that knowledge. One of the things, just going back to that job thing, it amazes me how many teams I speak to where you ask a simple question, okay, so what do they do? And you get kind of a blank, well, they're a software developer, or they're a business analyst. Okay, yeah, what do they do? They're in meetings a lot. Okay. You sit next to, you work with every day, you don't really understand what their job is. Or you assume the same as yours, even if they've got the same job title, you kind of assume they do the same stuff.
Exactly. And it's really important, you know, yes, in big teams that might be a bit difficult, but, you know, why not have a kind of policy where you reach out to somebody who you've never spoken to before, just to have a chat about what they do daily, what inspires them, you know, having a conversation starter, because then, you know, that drives relationships. You kind of get to know a bit more about the business and what's going on, especially if, you know, we are working remotely. Just got a couple of comments here that I wanted to bring to our attention. So, Mark says one of his biggest gripes is our obsession with symptoms and effects, not the causes. So, yeah, what do you think about that?
Yeah, Mark, awesome point. And, you know, he knows me as well in terms of my IT background, that so many years spent focused on bugs rather than the root cause of what's going on. This culture we've got of just patching and patching and patching till we move forward. And we think that's the answer. I can see this superficial response. If I deal with that, that'll take it off the table. It's disappeared. I don't have to give it any attention anymore. But these things come back and bite us, particularly.
Why not have the uncomfortable conversations, you know, quicker? You know, stop that storytelling, find out what's really going on, you know, maybe not find out straight away, but give the person or the people the space to come back to you in a way that suits them. It might not be a face-to-face, that might be too confrontational for them, but agree, you know, a framework for them to kind of have that conversation with you and work out a plan around that, so that they know that, yes, you're listening, but, you know, most importantly, something's going to be done about it, and they're going to feel, you know, like that they're heard and they've got a voice. And Audrey says here, she says sometimes people don't like what they think, and they may feel that it makes them disloyal, which is weird because their disengagement is far more disloyal. You know, it's disloyal to themselves because they're not being truthful with what's actually going on. And sometimes we do find it really hard to articulate what's going on, isn't it? Especially if you've not, you know, really had the support and help with people around you who can help you work it out. And if you've always been that kind of person to not share your feelings in a family setting, and it's all like, we brush that kind of thing under the carpet, we don't talk about it, and don't worry, it will just kind of disappear. Well, if you've always acted like that, then you're always going to act like that at work, and you have to be taught how to do it in that real safe way with the right people who are going to challenge you, but be there to uplift and support you. That's the key. And this is the thing that tends to not happen, is that people don't want to talk about it, or they don't react well to it because they don't know how, because, you know, it's a skill.
It is a skill, and like any skill, it requires practice. That, like you said, that idea that you ask a question and somebody can provide you with a fully formed, articulate, clear response is just rarely happens. And just engagement comes through exploring things. Oh, okay, so why do you do that job? Oh, I do it because of this. That's not a conversation that happens. Conversation. So talk to me about this job. Well, you know, I think I started because of this and that, and this and that and that and that. I'm not sure. And they go, oh, okay, why are you not sure? But it comes through conversation. It's my biggest gripe with employment surveys. There is a time and a place for a survey. There's a time and a place for a snapshot, particularly logistically, of trying to capture a view of a lot of people. Fundamentally, I'd always come back to, if you need to use a survey to see how engaged your team is not engaged. It's as simple as that. If you're not getting a decent flow of information through the team in conversations that you can reasonably well get a feel for how engaged they are, then you're not engaged.
Mm.
What most organizations do is they'll do a survey, they'll get something back such as, we feel disengaged from our leadership. Okay, brilliant, tick. We will go and send all our leaders on a leadership course. They got into that symptom. Okay, the symptom is they're disengaged from the leaders. Instead of, okay, it seems like everybody's disengaged from the leaders. Let's explore that. Let's have some conversations. Let's have some workshops. Let's have some one-on-ones. Let's have some, confidential boxes where people can drop. Let's gather. Let's create a conversation around that, rather than assuming that the problem is the leaders. Then, so let's send them all on training. The problem might be you've got the wrong leaders. The problem might be the leaders are just stressed at the moment and haven't got the time because you're pushing them on other stuff. The problem might not be the leaders at all. It might be, who knows what it is. This is this culture we've got into of,
it's a scratching the surface.
Yeah, I want a simple answer. This gives me something to do.
Yeah.
You've now said leadership is a problem. I can do something, and it makes me feel good. It feels like we're making progress. You've got to get under the skin of it. Mark's just mentioned, is it? Do you both think it's often more a cock up than a conspiracy? Absolutely. I think you should never underestimate the power of incompetence, of just not in a negative way, but in a lack of training, lack of experience, lack of time and energy. One of the things a good place to start with an individual and a team is, nobody goes into work to do a bad job. No burger flipper goes into a burger joint to make an untasty burger. No software engineer goes in to write bad code. No leader goes in saying, I'm going to disengage my team today. Work from that assumption that nobody goes in with that intent. That then frees you up to say, so why is that happening? Why am I creating untasty burgers? Why are untasty burgers? Why are we getting feedback that these burgers are not tasty? Why am I feeling disengaged if that wasn't their intent? What else is going on? And that then puts you in a stronger position to start asking questions about it, because you're not saying, you made me disengaged. You're saying, I know that's not how you came into work today. And that can be hard, but I think you said it, that it's not the situation, it's not your boss, it's not your team member, it's your response to that situation, and looking at that self-awareness.
Because this is the thing that we find with organizations, isn't it? One of the main problems that they find is that they give out the communication, but it's not received in the right way, because we all take in communication differently. And why would you expect for one piece of communication to land with everybody in the same way? Well, none of us see the world in exactly the same way. And it's really simple things like that can, when you know how to do things differently and add variety to it, so that you're always doing visual communication, audio communication, written communication, having, rewarding the behavior from the inside out by having, change leaders or whatever it is, and finding a reward pattern for the behaviors that you want to see, and encouraging more of that. Because, as a team, if somebody's going to turn around and say, well, I really liked it when you did that, most of other people's ears are going to prick up and go, yeah, that was really, really good, and I really enjoyed that. But sometimes we get too busy. That's the thing, isn't it? Most leaders say, oh, we're too busy to kind of take notice. Our KPIs are being reached. Everybody's being really productive. We're fine. But that's the moment that engagement is lost, because they're not purposely disconnecting to enjoy those moments of finding out who they are, who their team members are, and having those moments to, also create happiness and joy at work, because why shouldn't we do that as well? And going back to what you were saying earlier about, having those kind of cock-up situations of the conspiracy, I also believe that to improve engagement, and again, this is proven with what we've done with work in teams, is to freaking say sorry and mean it, rather than, I'm the leader, I'm, the head of department, or I did something, whoever it was, a team member, whoever it was in the organization, and just, ignore it and just go, let's just move on from that, is to actually say, I'm really sorry that happened. And it could be, production issue. It could be something that you said, the way that you behaved, the way you reacted, but to openly apologize to, your team or a person, whoever it is, and learn from it and move on, and don't let it kind of affect you going forwards, but find different ways to do that differently. But once you do that, you kind of unarmor, using Brené Brown words here, and just go, look, I messed up and I am human. We are not robots in this team. And there are going to be times where we do fail, but failure is really good. And there is no such thing as failure. It's only feedback. And I can do it and you can too. And let's be honest about it and let's work out why that happened. Let's do it fast, because then we'll get to find out what works.
Absolutely. And think the fast word is interesting in that if you think about sometimes apologizing, it's not the apology itself that is actually the key turning point. It's the taking the moment fast. So when something's been made aware to you, taking that moment to say, okay, let's talk about that. Let's understand it, rather than quite often, and I do this with, we all do this in certain aspects of life, that kind of something's pointed out, you go, oh yeah, sorry. That's not, even though you mean it, you've not taken the moment to understand what's gone on. Yeah. And engagement comes from understanding, a deeper understanding, particularly around the work. What's going on with the work? What's going on with the reason you're all together? What have I done? What have I said? What am I not doing? What have I not said that's not helping or not encouraging? And help me understand that. And then when you realize, okay, I did something wrong, then apologize. Apologies need to be specific.
Yeah.
So I think for me in a team, it's that kind of, there's two extremes. There's a not apologizing. There's the knee-jerk apology, constantly apologizing. Then there's, the real value is in the middle of just, okay, what's going on? Help me understand it. Help me learn from this. That's what you want. An apology is not the end of the conversation. Apology is, I've done something wrong. I'm apologizing for that. I won't do it next. I won't, I will try not to do it again, or I will try to learn from this. So to not, or whatever it is. So there has to be something from that.
Yeah. Audrey says here she can remember having to do this when she momentally screwed up term dates and added 2 more working days for my staff. I just put up my hand and realized that, and I fessed up quickly. And then that's it, isn't it? It obviously made her feel better just by getting it out there and not dwelling on it and letting it fester and turn into something that was much more unhelpful. And she was just open and honest to go, okay, great, it's out there now. What can we do about it? And that's the thing, isn't it? People don't need to pretend. And this is kind of part of what we do, isn't it? It's just saying, look, you are human. You can bring your full self to work. There are going to be times when you mess up. And there are going to be things that you need to learn. But the only way you can do that is to start really engaging in a different way. If things, because what we do is also help people who are already doing really well. That's the thing. We don't just help people who are struggling, do we?
No, engagement isn't there's a problem and therefore engagement will fix the problem. Yeah. Engagement is continuous. It's contextual. It constantly changes because your life changes, the work changes, the world around you changes. My word, does the world around us change fast these days? But so there's always things going on. Like I said earlier on, this kind of ebb and flow. So when you kind of understand your job and you start to talk about what other people do in your team and their job, and things like asking questions like, okay, so right now, what are the 3 most important responsibilities you got in this team? What do you think are the 3 most important things you do right now? That can change. So regularly asking a question like that. Okay, it's been 6 months since we've explored our job. So, last time you said this and this was the most important thing. What is it now?
Yeah.
Is it safe to change? Because it does.
Yeah.
Particularly in, just everything is changing so fast. What might have been, I guarantee you, what was the 3 most important priorities, responsibilities pre-lockdown would have changed drastically.
Yeah.
Pretty much everybody.
Exactly. And I think it's just taking note also of people's natural rhythms in when they want to engage and when they are, ready to engage. And actually, the situation popped up in my mind just a minute ago about, I did a blog for teenagers because I help teenagers as part of my other work as well. And when our kids come through the door, we've got 5 of them, and they are mostly teens, so they're not particularly talkative at the moment. So when they walk in the door, it's like, how's school? And they go, good, hoodie up, looking down, not wanting to talk. But then when I really started to notice is that when they went to bed, all they wanted to do was talk. And it was like, oh, well, this happened today, and you never guess what, and la, 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 la. And I'm like, I can't now tell them to go to bed, obviously, I tell them to go to bed when it's time to go to bed, so they're not taking the mickey. But I'm like, right, well, I'm going to conserve some of my energy for this because I really want to be there with them when they're ready to talk, because that's a really nice moment. And it's just getting those real nuggets of joy and making the most of them. So this is the kind of thing that you can do with your teams. You know, there's no difference, is there, between what works in a family also can work in your team family. And it's just noticing what they like doing and how they like doing it and encouraging it, but also setting aside that regular time to, you know, have those conversation starters. And it doesn't even need to be something serious, because what we tend to find when we have conversations, it does lead on to other things, isn't it? When people are relaxed and they're not tense and they're not thinking, oh God, I've got all this work to do and I can't really, you know, set aside the time to do this and I really need to be engaged, but they're thinking about all the other things that are going on in their life, what they're having for dinner, and, you know, all their other responsibilities and their workload, and, you know, the price of petrol, £1.90 today. You know, there is so much going on. So I think it's a real mix in a team to notice what's working well and make it even better, and then setting aside the time to make it happen regularly and to find different ways and ask people, you know, what they want, but also guide them in a direction that you know is going to be helpful, and expect to make mistakes. And, you know, that's the continual part of learning, isn't it? And developing.
Yeah, I think, you know, for me, that's pick your moment. And more importantly, learn when to pick your moment. Like I said, with kids, you know, I will never ask my kids anything interesting or request for information or anything other than maybe take the mickey within about an hour of them eating, because you know, hungry, just, you know, it's not
hungry
to engage in any conversation. And I've learned that through trial and error. Should have known that from the get-go, but, you know, I kind of learned that. But again, you know, knowing that Jack is not really a morning person and springing on Jack, right, Jack, you know, today I'd really love to learn about your job today. What you do, you know, springing that on them first thing. You know, play around with that stuff, learn when to engage, when other people like engaging, and just kind of, you know, pick your moment. Like you say, I think there's if you want, sometimes, you know, to turn engagement around fast, which is the point of this conversation, sometimes you have to go slow, and that's taking a breath, saying, okay, is this the best time to do this?
Yeah.
And if not, when?
Yes.
And sometimes it might not be the best, it might be the second best, or whatever. You know what, guys, we've been putting this off for a bit too long. You know, it's about a conversation about some stuff. When do we do it? Again, asking those questions rather than assuming.
And it's, you know, it's sometimes when we start these conversations, we're so scared about saying the wrong thing, so we put ourselves on our back foots already. But actually, when we just go into it and just say what we want to, but using our human intellect to just be compassionate, it's always going to go well. And, you know, understanding how the RAS works, that part of the brain that filters 4 to 6 pieces of information. If you set your RAS to the conversation going well, and if you're being an engaged conversation, the chances are it will be, because you're looking for the good that will come out of the situation, rather than, oh, this person isn't going to want to have this conversation and then it's not going to go well. They're going to be really against what I'm saying. So it's just, you know, understanding a little bit of neuroscience, trying different things, and thinking, you know, to yourself, what do I like? How do I like to be engaged with? And maybe writing that list of, you know, 5 things, because the chances are if you like it, then other people are going to do it and are going to like it. And then you can find ways to make it happen and start suggesting that, because most people wouldn't have even gone down that process to work out what they like, because that's the whole, you know, point, isn't it? Every team is different. And maybe asking that question to your team is a really good place to start as well.
Yeah, I've worked with teams where they've measured their success of communication by how many Slack channels they've got. Oh, lots, look how many Slack channels we've got. And it's kind of like, does that suit everybody? And it clearly suits a lot of people, because there's a lot of conversations in some of them. But if you go into a lot of them, you say, well, there's, see, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. I see 3 people commenting a lot. That's great. You've got 7 people in your team. Where are the other 4? Oh, they're quiet. And it's not that they're disengaged. It may be that they don't like the engagement channel. Their preference is probably more face-to-face or whatever. And that doesn't mean you have to stop using Slack and just do face-to-face, and they never have to. It's actually about being intentional, saying, you know what, I prefer those quick, short conversations by Slack, because my brain, that's how I like my brain for that. It works well. I'm not so good face-to-face. Okay, I'm really good face to face. I'm not so good on that.
Yeah.
How do we bridge that?
Yes. Yeah.
How do we bridge that? Do we, but just airing that just increases engagement by itself. My communication preference, which is a bit clunky, but hey ho, my communication preference is email. My communication preference is Slack. My communication is telepathy. Whatever it is, just hear it and see and then just say, what does that mean? Oh, is that why you're so quiet? Oh, I thought you just weren't interested in this work. Oh no, God, I'm really interested in that work. And actually, I'm pissed off because you guys are flying ahead. And by the time I catch up with the conversation, you've already sorted it out.
Yeah.
We've had a 5-minute video chat. We could have done this, and this, and I'd have been really engaged in that then. Okay, well, we'll do the chat. Then we'll say, Bob, we finished. Do you want to join us for a quick video chat? So just sharing those things is really
and it's the way that it's aired in the language that we use as well, isn't it? I had an email that came in from a theatre group that my daughter used to belong to, and they've lost. Well, some of the kids basically haven't brought back these gowns. And I'm going to read it to you. I'm not going to give out the details of who it is. But good morning to you all. I can't tell you how very disappointed I am that my request for the return of the gowns has been ignored by many of you. The costumes cost money to make, and now precious funds will have to be used as a source of replacement. There were 15 of the gowns handed out and only 6 returned. And it goes on and says, somewhere I thought you would respect enough to support. And you're like, yeah, this is, a team and a theatre group. But often we find this kind of toxic email conversations happen in our workplace. Is that going to get you a good result with communication and engagement? Absolutely not. But we see it and experience it a lot of the time. And, I was actually going to email this woman back with a suggestion as to how she might be able to change it, because you can still say that in a very different way and probably get a much better response. Well, 100% you would definitely get a better response, because initially I read that and I was like, oh my God, you can hear the anger in it, can't you? It's like, and you're instantly going to disconnect from it and go, oh, I'm actually really scared now because she might bite my head off when I do come back with a gown. And it's the same in, the corporate world. Getting a crappy email is going to have a crappy response. And that's not what engagement's all about. And then we can change our language, change where it's coming from, have an idea of where you want it to go, and then pace someone to a much more helpful place. So it feels good for them, feels good for you, better outcome all round, joy at work, job done.
What I like about that is not the email. What I like about your response to that is, so many people say, I have to stop being angry. I have to stop being annoyed at this stuff. I have to stop caring. No. We have to change the way we interact with those feelings and the tools we use to express that. We still need to be us. If something frustrates you, if something angers you, notice that. Don't deny it. Don't hide it, because that will make it worse.
Yeah.
What engagement is about, and what connection will help as well, having a deeper connection with the people around you, because you'll understand yourself and them more. What it's about is finding the best way to express that in a way that's helpful. I'm not saying this is right, but a step closer would be something like, all the gowns are missing. At the moment I'm feeling confused and if I'm honest, a little bit annoyed about that. Can you help me? What can we do to resolve this situation? Not denying it. There's quite often this nirvana of an engaged and connected and healthy team means that they're all smiles and everything's lovely. No, people are going to get angry. They're going to get sad. They're going to get disappointed. It's feeling safe enough to articulate that in a way that is useful and is not judgmental, is not damaging, is not toxic. It's actually an expression of where you are. And there are ways you can teach yourself to do that sort of stuff. So don't deny your true self. It's about changing the tools you use to express that. And that, again, takes practice, broken record. But not, hi, I see the gowns are missing. It'd be lovely if they could be returned. That's not going to get you.
And that's the thing, but also you said that, hi, that just reminded me, when we pretend in teams that everything's okay, but actually behind the scenes, people are like, oh my God, I feel really bad. I've got too much work. I'm completely feeling overwhelmed. My boss doesn't understand. Everybody else in my team is really struggling. People talk. They talk to each other. And then those conversations reflect in other conversations with suppliers, new business, potential new business, current account, the current clients, with the conversations that people have in supermarkets with their families. It has an effect. And just to kind of gloss over and pretending everything is okay is just so damaging, because people talk. And why not just have those conversations early, so that kind of toxic, self-perpetuating negativity is blasted out the water? Because actually it's quite easy to jump on that bandwagon sometimes, isn't it? If we're not feeling too great in ourselves and we're like, oh God, yeah, I feel like that too. And yeah, it's so bad. And it's just so damaging.
It is. It damages in that moment, that relationship with those, but it reinforces that behavior. You will engage that way. Again, like you say, if that's how you respond to your team, then that's how you will respond to your customers. That's how you will respond to your clients, to your vendors, to your partners.
Yeah.
When you get home, it reinforces that behavior.
Mm-hmm.
Again, doesn't mean that the emotion you're feeling, the response you're having is invalid. It's about reflecting on that and saying, okay, what's the most useful thing I can do here to express this situation?
Yeah.
And reflect on yourself as well. And I think we get caught up in the minutiae of our tasks, and actually it's stepping back. Like I said, start with the job, start with the task.
Mm-hmm.
Got to look deeper than that. Why are you doing that job? What's the meaning it has for you?
Yeah.
Is it actually having that? You said about being honest to yourself. Is it actually having that meaning? I do this job to help people. It's kind of, I love helping people. Okay. Who are you helping? How many are you helping? Are you really helping? Do you know how much you're helping them? You find out how much you're helping them. If you've not got that kind of understanding, then there's going to be a gap. Well, my value is, I want to do this to help people, but I don't.
That's it. And it's
not helping people.
Yeah, it's not accepting that that's always going to be that way as well. Well, my team's disconnected and they're not engaged. And it's like, well, yeah, but you can do something about it. And if you can't personally do something about it, ask somebody for their help. And if they don't help, ask somebody else. Don't just give up. That's the thing, isn't it? And you might get to the point where you think, actually, this isn't the right organization for me. I need to move on. And that's fine. That's a journey that you've got to take, regardless of what position you have in that company. But you have to always remember that you are in the driving seat of that engagement.
Yeah. Hi, team. I'm feeling a bit disengaged. How are you all?
Yeah.
See where the conversation goes. Not to fix it, not with an intention to come out of that conversation engaged, but just to say, just to start a conversation. And again, like I said, that ripple effect. Like you said there about people talk, people, it's happening anyway. Disengagement ripples. So throw a different stone in and see the ripples. Something will happen anyway. Yes. So you might as well at least try. You'll be expending energy and effort disengaging. You might as well spend some energy and effort engaging.
Absolutely. Great stuff.
Conscious of time. Was there anything else you wanted to mention in the conversation? Anything else we've not covered?
No, Mark's last comment was tolerating when employers bring problems is key for managers, i.e. there is a reason they don't get raised before.
I'm all for, I'm against this kind of movement that we've had where, bring me solutions, not problems. No, bring me problems, bring me thoughts, bring me ideas, bring me solutions. Yes. Don't bring me a shutdown attitude of here's something, I'm done. No. Bring me something.
Yes.
Take that to your team. And again, disengage from that expectation that I'm bringing this to you for you to fix it. Maybe you're bringing it to them for some help or some insight, or you want them to take it on. But actually disengage from that expectation of it being completely resolved. And have a conversation about it. And that's a safe, that's a constructive, that's an engaged environment where I've thought of something. I just wanted to raise it. What do you think?
Yeah. Where are you at with this right now? Yeah. What do you think?
Can we explore it?
Yeah, I like that. I think this is my key takeaway for the conversation, really. And I haven't heard you talk about this before, but bring me problems. I want to know what the problems are, because without knowing, we're just guessing. Guessing doesn't help. So don't bring me solutions. Bring me the problems, because then when we know what they are, we can work out what to do about them and who needs to do what and where your place is in all of this. I love that.
Brilliant. Release yourself of that expectation. You've got to fix everything.
Yeah. And sometimes just
you
having
will see
those.
something, but
Yeah.
open yourself up to seeing something or hearing something.
Yes.
That's all. That's the only expectation you need.
Yeah, and a really great skill, actually, what you're talking about, being able to disconnect also in conversations, is when you ask the question, being able to stay silent rather than fill that space and coming up with a solution yourself. If you actually really want to hear what somebody's got to say, maybe ask it in a few different ways and just be silent. Yeah, it's going to feel a bit weird the first few times you do it, but actually that's when the real quality of conversations happen.
Silence. I still sit on my hands every now and then as a physical kind of way of saying, listen. This is a way of, this is signaling to me, listen, no speaking, just listen.
Yeah, nice. Yeah. Great stuff. Cool. Well, thank you very much for everybody's comments.
Yeah, thanks, Audrey. Thanks, Mark, and the others watching.
Yeah,
we shall see you same time, same place next week, I think.
Yeah, brilliant. Okay. Right. Have a great day, everyone.
Thanks, Tasha.
Bye.